We are providing only 20%, that is 6 to 8 articles, as a part of promotion. For remaining 80% current affairs video and general studies complete videos, please subscribe to our complete package. 1. Utilizing evaporating water to generate power. GS Paper 3. Renewable energy and development of new technologies. Why recently in news? A small device prepared in Professor Sahin's office in Columbia University could open up the possibility of another form of renewable energy, one that is much cheaper than solar and wind. He has used the simple gadget to prove that evaporating water can be used to generate power. This could eventually lead to energy being generated from still reservoirs. At the center of the research in New York there are spores of common soil bacteria. These spores expand, much like a muscle, when there is moisture in the atmosphere, and contract in drier conditions. How does Professor Sahin conducted experiment? He coated a rubber sheet with spores. By putting a glass of water beside it, the rubber sheet changes its curvature with the moisture in the air, and pushes and pulls on a seesaw mechanism. This motion was then converted into electricity using an attached coil and magnet. How this discovery can be applied to generate electricity in large scale. In open bodies of water, such as reservoirs or lakes, molecules are leaving the surface in the constant process of evaporation. These are eventually replenished with rain. A device can sit at the interface where water is evaporating. It can pick moisture from the water surface and give it to the dry air and take some energy. An evaporation engine sat on the surface of the water, and as moisture entered the device, the spores on plastic tapes curve and open shutters, allowing moisture to escape from the unit. When the shutters close again, the moisture fills the device and the system starts again. Another device is the moisture mill, where spores on tapes were placed around a wheel. As the spores start to flex like a muscle, the device starts moving. What are the uses of the technique? One of the possible uses for the technique is on reservoirs, where there is a substantial amount of evaporation, particularly in drought-affected areas. Professor Sahin says long sheets of plastic painted with the spores could be stretched across parts of the water and generate power, while at the same time reducing the amount of water which is lost through evaporation. The setup costs of the evaporation method would be cheaper compared with other renewable energy sources such as wind and solar. About soil bacteria. A soil bacterium called Bacillus subtilis wrinkles as it dries out like a grape, becoming a raisin, forming a tough, dormant spore. Unlike raisins, which cannot reform into grapes, spores can take on water and almost immediately restore themselves to their original shape. Sahin realized that since they shrink reversibly, they had to be storing energy. The way forward. There could be problems if you go from lab to the real environment, but for that you just need to test it and identify it, and you cannot do that until there is more research funding on this. At present, there are just 3 people working on the project, he said, a number which needs to increase tenfold to develop it further. While the technology is certainly interesting, and the potential energy is certainly there, it remains to be seen if an approach to electricity generation such as this can be economical. 2. Western Indian Ocean phytoplankton hit by warming. GS Paper 3. Threats to environment and ecology. Why recently in news? Phytoplankton, microscopic marine plants, populations in the western Indian Ocean have declined by 20% over the last 6 decades, according to a recent study published in Geophysical Review Letters. This decline has strong implications for the ecology of the region as it seriously affects the ocean food web. There has already been reflected in a decline in fish catch in the region, and poses a threat to food security in the Indian Ocean Rim countries, and also the global fisheries market. What the reasons for decline in phytoplankton as per study? The study says that the main reason for the decline in the phytoplankton is increased sea surface temperatures, which suppress the mixing of surface and subsurface waters. The increased sea surface temperatures result in less dense water in the surface, a process known as stratification. Though the surface waters are exposed to sufficient sunlight required for photosynthesis of these plants, the nutrients, nitrates, phosphates and silicates, from the lower depths do not reach the surface due to stratification. Meanwhile, the subsurface phytoplankton do not have access to sunlight for photosynthesis and growth, even though they have access to nutrients at the lower depths. This leads to less phytoplankton as these marine plants are asexual and multiply by cell division, as they grow and reproduce in the presence of sunlight and nutrients. Future climate projections, however, suggest that the Indian Ocean will continue to warm, driving this productive region into an ecological desert. What are the impacts of reduction of phytoplankton? Changes in plankton production can have immense impact on marine species as well as humans, who rely on them as a source of food. Downward trends in primary production over these areas can be detrimental to the marine food webs and the fishing industry. Large-scale distribution of tuna fish species are associated with the phytoplankton availability and abundance.